Rachel Macaulay has built a decade-long career through creative storytelling and effective relationship building. A communications leader, she has successfully supported 2 liberal arts institutions to become the fastest-growing universities in her province. Currently, she manages a diverse portfolio at Canada's only women's university, Brescia University, where she takes seriously her responsibility to nurture thought and organizational leadership that aligns with the world's evolving needs. Let us hear from Rachel.
I'm delighted to be with you all here today. I am sorry that I can't be with you in Delhi for this amazing Global Leadership Summit, but I'm glad that I'll still get to speak with you for the next few minutes about authentic leadership and my role as the Director of Communications, External Relations and Marketing at Brescia, all the way in London, Ontario. So thank you to ADD Aora for having me here. I've gotten to know Aditi over the past several months, and it's just been amazing to see all the tender love and care that she's put into this Girl Up Global Leadership Summit. I know you are all probably having the absolute best day, and I wish I could be there with each of you. As I said, my name is Rachel Macaulay, and I work at a university back home in Canada. And we have, for the past 104 years, been an all-women's affiliate of Western University. I'm looking out over at Western right now, and we are very excited that we've had some new developments within the last few weeks, and we will be further deepening our partnership with Western and exploring some really exciting preparatory pathways programs for students from around the world within the coming year. But for now, I want to reflect a little bit on our shared mission with Girl Up and how we came to be partners on this leadership summit. So Brescia has been in existence since before women were legally recognized as persons in Canada. And during that time, women were not allowed at most higher education institutions in North America. So the Ursuline sisters, who are the foundresses of this great university, they decided it was time to fling open the doors and allow women a wonderful space to learn and to develop their leadership skills. So for the past century, that's exactly what we've been doing here. And it's one of the reasons that I was so drawn to working with Aditi and the team at Girl Up India. We want to make sure that the world is a place that welcomes the voices, opinions, and potential of women from around the world. And I want you to take a pause right now to congratulate yourselves for being at this summit and taking a stand to say that the future needs to be better than today is. So congratulations to all of you for standing up for what you believe in and for taking time out of your weekend to show that you care about the world's most pressing issues. I know that we will be talking about a lot of important subjects today, and what I want to speak with you about is how to approach each one of those issues and opportunities with authenticity. So I'd like to get into my chat, which is about living unfiltered in 2023. I chose this title for my conversation with you today because I think it has a lot of different connotations. Of course, on social media, we know about filtering, whether that's giving ourselves perfect skin, perfect eyelashes, or the perfect tropical background for the vacation we may or may not have actually enjoyed. Filtering is such a part of the culture in 2023, and I think it goes beyond the aesthetics that we see or the filters that we create on social media to really our personalities and how we present ourselves. I was led to the conversation around this topic by engaging with one of my students who has actually done a lot of work around queer authentic leadership. And she chose this topic because when she wanted to look at different leadership models, she was called to the word authenticity and what that means, and wanted to look more into what is an authentic leader? How do they show up? How do they differ from other different types of leaders? And what she realized as someone who identifies as part of the queer community is that there were no models of authenticity that were accessible to her. There was a lot of talk about being vulnerable and creating space for other people to show up as they are. But when you don't have the safety and the understanding of others to show up in a way that is authentic to yourself without fear of judgment, how can you really be authentic? So the concepts around authentic leadership, they've been around since the 1960s, and maybe even longer. And much of the research that's been around that key component of authentic leadership is mostly representative of white men. So as a woman who wants to show up authentically, how is that different than how people who have always been welcomed at the leadership table show up? And this gets more complicated and more exclusive to people who are representative of equity deserving groups and those who are perpetually excluded from leadership tables around the world. So I want to challenge you today to think of a few different things. What does authenticity mean to you? And if you, without fear of judgment, without fear around your safety or what other people may think about you, how are maybe the 5 key qualities or ways of showing up that you would like to ascribe to? So for me, if I was to show up authentically and wasn't going to worry about what anyone thought or said or how they responded to me, I think I would want to be eccentric. I think I'd want to be loud in a way that held a lot of value and meaning for the people around me. I would want to be loving and kind. I would want to be courageous and to speak up for the things that I believe in. And I would also want to be funny. I like to be funny in the best of situations and in the worst of situations. And you know what? Sometimes it lands well and sometimes it doesn't. So for you, how would you want to show up authentically? And there's 1,000,001 ways that you could describe that leadership. But I think at the heart of it, once you look at who you want to be, is that really correct? Does that really hold space for, not who your parents want you to be or not who your teachers want you to be, but who do you really want to be? And that is a lifelong journey. And it's one that, especially as you put yourself out there as leaders, as learners, you're going to realize that from now through to adulthood, it's going to ebb and flow. And you have to create space for that. Your authentic self now will not be the same as your authentic self a decade from now. And that's all right. That doesn't mean that you are fake or that you're not showing up in a certain way. It's just a part of maturity. It's a part of growth. But it's more when you are feeling like you need to change in every situation, or you need to filter your personality or filter the way you look or the way you dress. That's when it's going to start to likely impede upon your ability to lead and impede upon your ability to be vulnerable enough to create space for those around you to lead authentically as well. So whether you are here because you're invested in eradicating period poverty, or you are looking at the educational systems within which you operate, or there's some other political or socioeconomic issue that is the forefront of your mind, it will do you a lot of service in service to your causes is if you take the time to reflect on how you want to show up every day. Because if you constantly are asking yourself, am I who I want to be? It really will create barriers for the change that you want to create. And it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done to be yourself when you don't know how people are going to reciprocate. And I want to be very clear that I exercise a lot of privilege. I live in a place where I have the safety and I have the security to be myself. Especially working within a women's university, we have a very accessible, very kind and compassionate model of leadership that we have here. So again, it's easier said than done. And when you are deciding how to be an authentic leader, it is good to make sure that you're doing so in ways that are going to be safe for you. But I think what we can all agree upon as you look around at the other students and the other girls or women identifying individuals in the room, how can we work together to make sure that we all have the safety and security to be ourselves? And as you explore this conversation today with those around you, I think, while also thinking about the 5 ways that you want to show up for who you are, let's also talk about the ways we can remove barriers for other people to be how they want to be. I think some of the ways to do this, we can lean into ones that are more complicated, or we can lean into ones that are simpler. And why not focus on simple? Because it's usually always best. So I think kindness is definitely one of the ways that we can create safe spaces for people to be authentic. And because I'm speaking to a room full of women leaders, I want to say that authentic leadership so far has not always looked into or honored women's ways of leading and being. And kindness, compassion, inclusivity, and a willingness to listen to those around them, those are some of the models of leadership that are associated with femininity. So they don't often get as much credence as maybe some other more typically masculine models of leadership get. But kindness, compassion, and vulnerability are the roads to authenticity. So when you see another Girl Up Leadership Summit participant absolutely killing it, make sure you tell her, celebrate her successes, and that will encourage her to do the same thing for others. And it will also, the more positive energy, the more supportive energy that you create within the summit or within your schools, the more you will feel good about being yourself. Because when we aren't afraid of being judged by others, then we don't feel like we need to judge others as harshly. And the more that we give into the world, the more we're gonna receive. And you don't do it just because it's gonna have positive dividends for you, but you do it because that's how we make the world a better place. One little act of kindness, one little act of justice at a time. So as I wrap up my talk today, what I really want to leave you with is think about who you want to be, and simultaneously think about how you want to lead. If you're doing it right, those two things will be the same. You should not want to show up as a person one way and as a professional another. You cannot lead an authentic life if those two personalities don't go together. So that would be my one piece. My second thing is constantly be asking yourself, how can I build those safe spaces for others? Ask your partner beside you, how can I make you feel more comfortable to freely share your opinion today? And when someone does show you who they are and they are vulnerable in those moments, say thank you. Tell them they're doing a great job. And again, those may sound like simple traits, but whether you are in the working world or whether you're in your next university or educational realm, those are the things that are going to build up the types of competence and confidence we all need as leaders, and especially as women. And my third thing would be just congratulations for being here. Thank you for having me with you. I really wish I could be there to shake your hands, to give you high fives, and to tell you just how proud I am for everything that you're doing. Our university has always celebrated women, and we will always continue to do so. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Aditi has my contact information. Don't hesitate to learn more about Brescia or about Western University more broadly. We have so many exciting programs for students, for women that really are looking to carry our university and this generation into a better, more inclusive and more sustainable future. And I know all of the women and girls listening to this video right now, you want to be a part of a future that is safe, that is inclusive, and that just has the vibrancy that occurs when everybody gets to be themselves and do so in ways that are really going to honor our world's most pressing issues. So thank you for allowing me to be here today. I hope the rest of the day is just full of great conversations and great commitments towards all of your social justice initiatives and all of the ways that you're going to use your brilliance and your boldness to ensure that you create a beautiful, long legacy of women's leadership. Thank you.
Hello, how are we doing? I said, how are we doing? Clap, there we go. Let's get some energy in this room. There's girls that are powerful in this room, and I am excited to be here with you all. My name is Priestley Johnson. I am the director of Girl Up USA. I'm like the American version of Aditi, and I'm so excited to represent myself, Girl Up USA, and Girl Up's headquarters in the US, and I'm so excited to be here today. I'm gonna just briefly introduce myself and talk a bit more about my Girl Up journey. This is my second month here with Girl Up, but my entire career has always had the intersection of advocating for people and also being a champion of women and girls. That has started at the White House during the Obama administration, in the Council on Women and Girls, that has gone on also to being in the nonprofit sector and doing programming for marginalized young moms, single mothers in the U.S., and making sure that they have resources and funding and helping them get connected to help bring their lifestyle up higher. And then I've also done international women's work with the International Women's Forum and et cetera, and have done a lot in politics as well. But that's a little bit of me, but of what I've done. But that's not really who I am. So also who I am is, I would always start with defining myself. I always start with faith. I think I'm a child of God. I think I'm a daughter. I'm a sister, I'm a Black woman, and then I'm a woman, and I'm heterosexual, and so on and so forth, and that is kind of how I identify myself. But I'm joined here with Girl Up India's own communication director. So share a little bit more about yourself, Anushka.
Thank you, Priestley. Hi, everybody. I'm Anushka.
Woo!
Like Priestley said, I lead all things communications at Girl Up India, and I do love Girl Up India a lot, so I'm going to ask you to do a little fun thing with me.
Yes.
When I say girl, can you say up?
You got it?
Girl? Up. Girl?
Up!
Girl?
Up!
Amazing.
There we go. There's that energy. You guys got some food in you. Let's go.
Perfect. So I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the fact that this room is full of young change makers who've joined us on a weekend because they really believe in the power of community and they want to make our shared vision for Future 2030 a reality. So a big round of applause for all of you young leaders joining us today. And a quick note of acknowledgement and love to my team at Girl Up India, Aditi, Hamida, and Kunalika, and I, and our lovely interns. We've worked for 10 months. That's 300 days, and I can't do the math for the hours, so figure that out yourself. But all that blood, sweat, and tears has gone into the making of this summit, so I hope all of you have had a lovely time so far, and I'm very excited to chat about all things feminist leadership and community building with Priestley.
So Anushka, tell me a little bit more about how you identify yourself. Talk to us a little bit about that. I kind of went through all of my how I define myself, but what does that look like for you?
I mean, in response to your question, I want to start off by acknowledging the fact that I think who we are in this world is really important because it impacts how we see the world and also how we navigate the world. Personally, for me, I identify as queer and non-binary, so I'm very excited to occupy space here on such a big platform as a young person who's had perhaps not a very traditional journey of understanding myself and unraveling my own identity for myself. As I say that, I also want to acknowledge the fact that those labels, the words queer or non-binary, haven't always come very easy to me. Mm-hmm. For instance, my mother tongue is Hindi, and nobody in my immediate environment, my family or school, ever told me what queer is in Hindi or what non-binary is in Hindi, or how do I express myself? Is gender a spectrum? I didn't know that until I was 20, and I found a community of very vibrant and authentic people online who told me that, you know what, your pronouns can be anything. Your gender can be anything. It's not just male, female. It's beyond that. It's everything in between. It's everything beyond that. So I'm very, that has always reminded me of the fact that community is very powerful, and I'm so glad that we're getting to celebrate that today here at the summit.
No, thank you. And so talk to me a little bit more about finding your identity and how that contributes to you being a leader as well.
I think, like I said, community was a big part of how I found myself, of how I found affirmative ways to talk about my experiences that didn't necessarily fit traditional scripts of gender or sexuality. So that was a very, very vital part of how I found myself, how I figured out my identity as a young queer and non-binary person. And how that feeds into my leadership style really is that I want, perhaps for a young 8-year-old like right now, what I didn't have as a young 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I want them to have that affirmative language. I want them to be able to not just be included in spaces, but celebrated in spaces.
Exactly.
I want them in leadership making positions. I want them to be making the decisions that affect their lives. So day in and day out, that's what I'm doing at Girl Up and beyond. I want not just say like 5 seats at the table for like queer people, but why not like a whole table full of allies and like queer people, where queer people are leading their own decisions. They're deciding what happens to them.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think exactly my goal in life is to show up as that thing I didn't see growing up. So I definitely can identify with you.
And I know you also talked about the fact that being a Black woman has impacted a lot of your experiences.
Yes.
And I'd love to know, like, how does that factor into how you show up as a leader?
Yes, I think I did mention I'm a Black woman before I'm a woman, because the first thing you do see with me in a lot of rooms is that I am Black, and I love it. It's great. But I also know that it can come with a whole nother story that was told to someone before I even opened my mouth, right? And so I think that when I approach it, I don't really shy away from it. I think that's really a great part of who I am, and I think that colorism and racism and all of these different systems that are put up against us, and no matter what environment you're in the US or you're in India, there's a lot of through lines of how discrimination can happen. And so I have taken those experiences, I've dealt with them myself, and I use it to open a door for somebody else. And I say, okay, so I went through that experience. When I walked into the room, they didn't think I was the boss. And so every room I walk into, you're gonna know I am the boss. And so that's how I approach it. I look at it when it comes to opportunities. At one point, I know there's a lot of leaders in here, you're looking for internships. At one point, you're gonna be looking to employ other people as internships, and you're gonna be in a position of power. So what does that look like when you're in that position, and what door do you hold open for someone else that may have never gotten that experience, but they ran into you that day, and that's how their path and their story and their generation, their legacy changes because you open that door for them. But we're talking about diversity, and so let's talk a little bit more about our diversity and voices.
Love that. And I do think that you're an absolute boss.
I think
you
all
are
of you
a
all are
boss.
too.
You are a boss. And you're doing some very boss-like things at Girl Up USA.
Yes.
So love to congratulate you on that. But I completely hear you on the fact that we need more diverse voices leading change. Of course, we want to spotlight young voices, and that's absolutely our goal at the summit. I was reading a report recently, and the report mentioned that there are about 1 billion young people in this world right now. That's 16% of the population. That means no change can happen without young people being at those tables where decisions are being made. But when I say this in the same breath, I acknowledge the fact that not all young people have similar experiences, right? I don't have the same experiences as my peers in my team, or even some of the folks who are in our lovely youth committee that has supported all our work at the summit. So I think really centering diversity and not shoving difference under the carpet, or not treating difference as something to be afraid of, or like something that you have to worry about, like how am I going to manage this? How am I going to deal with like diversity and inclusion shouldn't be something that you tick off.
Yeah,
you
should create a space for it. It should be a part of the plan from the beginning.
Absolutely, like turn that into a superpower. Learn from your differences like we are doing here. We want to be able to see our own like piece, but like take that difference and like build sort of like shared visions, build solidarity, build sisterhood. And I know you're doing some of that work at Girl Up USA. You're building your community, you're centering intersectionality So would love to know like how you're doing that.
I think building that community really starts with education, because you want a community that's diverse, right? You want where someone who comes from another environment can come in, can come in and feels like they have a space at the table, right? But that means the people that are already at the table need to know that their experience is not everyone's experience. And that comes with education. Again, you don't know what you don't know, so there's no fault in that. But being curious, asking questions. I think I've been here for 3 days and I've asked the team a trillion questions about your culture because this is my first time in India. And it comes with curiosity. I'm here as a learner, I'm here as a listener. And a lot of the times it's positioning yourself as a listener and as a learner where you can gain the most value. And maybe you're not the one that's speaking up as much. Maybe you're the one that's in the room and you see something and you're like, oh, well, do we have a table available for this person? Because I think they should also have their opinion told, and turning your head for that. So with Girl Up USA, my goal is to make sure that before we open the door for more seats at the table, that everyone who's already there has a lot of education about different experiences. And then when we invite those people in, it's not their job to educate everyone else, right? Because that's a whole lesson of burdening other people and re-traumatizing them on if I'm here and I always have to tell you about the Black women's experience and you haven't done any research yourself, then I think that's a lazy way of diversity. I think when someone else comes in, they can add to a conversation and they can add a perspective, but it's not their job to educate the world on what affects them. I think you understand your role and your role as a person and how it affects the room, no matter where you are. Every room you show up. I know I show up as a Black woman, and I know I show up as a woman, and I know that affects every room I go into. And so that's the onus I put onto myself. But everyone else has their things that they identify on, and so you have to know when you go to the next room how that shapes the room when you walk in. But I want to talk a little bit more about, I think we did that, about building community. Let's talk a bit about building that diverse community a little bit more. The Girl Up community is a vital aspect of your advocacy efforts. Could you share some examples about how community has inspired your activism? So approaching activism with a community lens, how does that look for you?
Just FYI, I love talking about Girl Up, so this is my favorite question in this segment.
Yes.
You can find me any time of the day, even if I'm super, super tired, if you ask me about Girl Up, I will take out a couple of 100 hours and talk about Girl Up. So I'm going to do just that. So as the comms coordinator, I work on this beautiful piece of what I call art, and I consider art because it talks about the stories of our young leaders, of our community. It's the Girl Zine. And Priestley, you unveiled the Summit edition this morning.
That was one of the first things when I came on board, that I was given a Girl Zine, and they gave it to me digitally, and I combed through every single page, and I was like, wow, what a story you're telling, one, and then also how beautiful it is and how many different perspectives are put into that one body. Yeah.
And just curating that is such a fun experience for me because it's really like a quarterly note of love and appreciation for our community, for the work that they're doing as young people, as allies, as young women. Our clubs have done, for instance, one of our clubs for 16 days of activism, they did a fundraiser to support refugee artisan women. Another club did this amazing fundraiser, and they went to a district jail in Lucknow, and they interacted with the women prisoners there to understand the state of the prison and to understand more about the prison industrial complex. And we've had clubs do fundraisers during the pandemic to support education for people from marginalized communities. And that's just like 3 examples. We have over 700 clubs spread across like 26 states and union territories in the country. So you can only imagine the kind of work that each club is doing. And really like the sky is the limit for their work. And I know so many of them, for them, allyship is really like a political decision. It's an active choice that they're making to spotlight and talk about not just their own experiences as girls and young women, but also across intersections of like issues and identities. So I think what that does for me, just seeing that day in and out, is push me as a feminist and push me as a leader to show up as a better leader and as a better feminist. Because I do believe this. I think I'm a feminist in the making, and I will be a feminist in the making for all of my life. There's always, like you said, something to learn because you don't know everything.
One thing I really love about the Girl Zine is it's not only that you're documenting what's happening, but you're also creating a footprint for the next girl who can go through the zine and say, what else has happened? Oh, they did this, so maybe we should hit them up and see how we can do that with them next time. So definitely the summit edition of the zine is out, so make sure you look through that. It's been curated beautifully by our Anushka, and we are here, we're really here to celebrate that and the work that you've all done here in Girl Up India.
Can I ask you a question that I've been curious about ever since I saw you first a couple of days ago? I know you've worked across sectors. You've worked in politics, you've worked in policy, you've worked in social impact, and now you're here building the community at Girl Up USA.
Yes.
So do you have any tips, any strategies? Because we do have a lot of young leaders joining us here. How do we build solid communities that can lead change?
I think building a solid community is having one common goal that is just ambiguous enough that it sounds crazy and achievable at the same time. So that could look like we're trying to reach gender parity, or we're trying to solve different climate justice issues. We are here, and it sounds a little absurd, but it's very clear. And the closer you get to clarifying that is making it a big goal and then having flexibility on how you reach it. So having a really big goal, setting some numbers, inching towards it, it's like creating a sculpture. You just are given a block of clay and you start etching at it. And you're like, what is this gonna be? And my goal is that it's going to be someone's face, right? But you don't know what that face looks like. And as long as you have a goal or a vision in mind, you just keep etching at it. And as you keep moving forward to achieve that, you can just, you never know what you can find, but you know when you get there, right? And the goal is to keep working at it and making sure you have that North Star in your work. The strategy is having a North Star. You can't do this work and just have something really ambiguous, but you don't have the direction you want to go in. So that's my strategy. That's how I achieve it, or I try to achieve it, and I work with really great people. And so one thing about the Girl Up Club and the Girl Up structure is that you can recruit girls that have similar mindsets to you. I mean, I wish I had that. I was by myself getting on a bus to go campaign for somebody, and I wonder what my childhood would have looked like, would have looked like if I had someone riding the bus with me and we were strategizing and you guys look around you, you have an entire room of girls that want to do very similar things. They want to reach the same goals as you. Someone may want to do it through financial literacy. Someone may want to do it by protesting in their community. You have similar goals and you can help each other. I also say maybe don't focus only on your specialty. If someone has a sentiment about menstrual equity, but someone else has another thought, make sure you support each other. Don't get so visioned in that you don't think about the overall goal, that what I do to help this person can also help my goal. So it's about zooming in and also zooming out and having a really strong North Star. I was going to say North Pole. North Star for the work that you do. So let's talk a bit about balancing advocacy and longevity. I mean, we all do this work, right? We do this work, we care about it, and you care about the topics you care about, that are passionate to you. And that sometimes results in you burning out. That sometimes results in you being tired or being not very encouraged. Sometimes you have moments where you feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is never gonna get better. So I wanna talk to you a bit more about what would you share with our future leaders to create a balance between advocacy and caring for themselves?
I'm going to talk about this through a quick anecdote. So this year at Girl Up India, we launched this series called, interestingly, Feminists Across Borders, where we chat with feminists across borders who are working in different contexts, working on different issues. And one of the founders that I was speaking to, Aditi, she's founded Much Spectrum, and they work on advancing disability rights in the country. And they work specifically at the intersections of neurodiversity and gender. And she told me this one thing that has really stayed with me since our conversation. She said that our way forward is through a kind revolution. We are the revolution, but let's also make it a kind revolution. Of course, you want to show up for the work that you're doing, because like you said, we love the work that we do, but also sometimes when you scroll through the news or when you're reading up things online or when you're on the field, it can feel like, and it is true, there are a lot of things that we need to work on. Lots of things need our energy and need our dedication that need to be solved.
Yeah.
But do remember that you are one person within a community that is ready to support you, that is ready to step in when you have to take a step back to take care of yourself. Show the kindness that you bring for the work that you do, the passion that you bring for the causes that you believe in, to yourself as well. Like, be kind to yourself. And that's something that I did when I was prepping for this segment as well. It's my first time speaking to a crowd this big.
She's doing great, right?
And I reminded myself of this one thing that an ex-professor has said, that nobody really learned anything without making a fool of themselves. And that was my constant reminder throughout this thing. And I wanted to be kind to myself. So I'd urge all of you to be kind to yourself. You can always come back to your work. Your community is always there to support you. But I know that it's difficult for me too to balance all of this. So I'd love some tips from you. How have you done this so far?
Well, I've had a career that I've dealt with different disappointments in my career. Like, I've worked for elections, for example, and I'm advocating for this person I feel so passionate about. I'm knocking on doors. I mean, I'm telling my mom, my sister, everybody to help me accomplish this goal. It is my entire existence, and I would say that is probably the problem. And then I had an incredible disappointment when it didn't work out in the way that I wanted it to, and it crushed me. And I was like, I don't think I can ever care that much again. Does that make sense? And many of you may have experienced that, where it's like, I don't know how to even keep moving forward, because something can hurt you even though it's not necessarily a person doing something directly to you. It can hurt your community, it can hurt your environment, and it could hurt how you approach the world again, right? So I've had that experience, and what I was doing, how I overcame that was, I said, this thing that I care about is not going to be everything who I am. It's going to be a major part of who I am, because I think caring is who I am, and I think it is who we all are in this room. I think that's what brought us all to this summit. But I can also have fun with friends, and I can also smile, and I can dance, and I can drink really good boba tea, and I could have a great time in life, because life is still going on, and sometimes having the moments with the people you care about are the things that will refuel you. And so again, I know there's a bunch of parents in here. Taking your kids just out of that for 2 seconds and doing something fun is always rewarding, and it can help rejuvenate them, but also each other. The entire meeting shouldn't be what's wrong in the world. It should be, all right, I see you have some really cool nails today, and I hope you're doing well, and what's going on with you as a person, because who you are as a person really matters, and it will inform your work. Don't make your work become your entire identity. And so then you have a piece of you to keep when life goes up and down. So I always say you have to have something for yourself. And the more you think about that, the more you have for yourself, the better you'll be able to show up to do the work that you really care about.
I absolutely love that. It did deserve an applause. I know we've been chatting for quite a bit about all things leadership and community building, but we do have a very interesting question from the audience.
Okay.
And I'll read out the question and then we can hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
What are some signs through which we can identify the issue area that calls to us the most without feeling guilty for not doing enough in other related issue areas that we see fellow advocates working on?
That's a great question because there's so much issues to work on, guys. Like, there's just so much to be done. But I would say a lot of the times the opportunities come to you. I've found that to be my North Star, where maybe before this opportunity, I may have thought I wanted to do something different, but being here in this room is just so fulfilling that I know this is the right thing for me. And I think taking some time by yourself, no one else in your room, in your presence and whatever, and maybe journal a little bit. I'm like a, we need to figure out what's going on inside first before I go and even talk to anybody about this. Figure out what's inside and then create a list and maybe you try all of them. No one's saying you can't do a few things, but I think when you find the right place at the right time, because sometimes it's time. I think I've worked in politics, I've worked in nonprofits, I've worked in different spaces, and that's the right time for what I had the capacity for, right? You don't have to do everything at the same time. But I think you have a feeling inside where you're like, oh, I'm here. I've seen people that take too much on their plate and they can't really serve that thing that is burning in the back of their head, and you know it, you feel it. You're like, okay, if you all close your eyes right now, and you're like, if I could solve one problem. Wait, let's do this. Come on, guys. Close your eyes right now. Let me see. I can see. I'm looking at you guys, so I can see if we're doing this. Close your eyes. And if you could solve one problem, and you can see yourself doing it, maybe you're speaking at a place, maybe you're at an event, maybe you're advocating, you're protesting, maybe you're doing something, but like, go in that direction. That's exactly where you should be. And maybe that's through science, maybe that's through math, maybe that's through finance, maybe that's through climate change, advocacy, that's where you should go. Okay, you can open your eyes now. You see yourself in that place. Run towards that.
Perfect. I was going to add my thoughts, but I think that's the perfect note to end this segment on. We've had a very lovely time chatting with each other and looking at your lovely faces. You've been a wonderful audience,
yes.
And you've sent us some really amazing questions. Again, we hope that you have a fantastic summit. We have some very cute corners in the pre-function area as well. We have a kindness card station dedicated just for you. Write a kind note to like your fellow change makers. Pick up one as you go. We have a very cute photo booth. So just make this a fun thing. I know we're all here in the hall learning from each other, learning from leaders who work across issue areas, but make sure you take out that like couple of minutes to click a cute selfie, something to remember this summit by.
And also follow Girl Up USA. And if you would like to get connected with me, the easiest way, because I know that I would love to connect with all of you, but if you type my name into all things, you can get connected with me directly, but always follow Girl Up USA on Instagram, and we're excited to be here and represent the globalization of Girl Up. Congratulations, you all.
Perfect. I'm going to hand it back to our lovely MCs, Priyadarshini and Siddhi.